Hello, friends. Welcome to the very first podcast for the Vibrant Mom in the year 2026. I'm so excited to help you begin to craft a vision for what kind of a vibrant life, vibrant inner and outer health and well-being vision you can cast for yourself in this new year. So this episode is all about actually pulling in and holding back from striving, from efforting, for creating a big list of to-dos and just getting into the busyness of doing things. We're pulling away from that and instead intentionally restraining and pulling ourselves inward to cultivate a little bit more of a deeper listening foundation before we start to effort and move forward. I'm all about noticing where we're striving and suffering. And if we can bring striving and suffering to a more supported, sustainable place, we'll experience more vitality and well-being. So we're not starting the year striving. We're not starting the year in a way where we're letting our suffering influence what we're doing, but rather we're pointing instead inward to something that feels more like actually life-giving and ambitious, but not in a striving way, like exciting and vision casting, creating something for ourselves, friends, as women, as mothers, as workers who want to contribute and create and put good things and into the world and influence our communities and our homes and ourselves for the better. Let's start 2026 on the back foot, actually, of going inward and creating an internal flame, an internal light that will be life-giving and life-sustaining for the next 12 months. So my invitation to you, my question for you, my friend, is what kind of a vibrant life will you build this year? And what does vibrant health or vibrant well-being mean to you in this season of your life? So I'm not talking about from the outside looking in. Like from the outside, Kara has this great life because she has this going and that going, and she's always doing this or always doing that. Not from the outside in, but more from the inside. What will you build within so that you can experience all aspects of your life that matter to you in this season with a sense of vibrant health and deep well-being? What I'm really excited to get you excited about today is thinking about the kind of life you're going to be building this year, the kind of growth and movement you're going to be focusing on collecting and layering and building upon versus this achievement oriented or outward, other people consuming of your life, outward type of living or type of evaluating the way that you're going to be living. Let me tell you what I mean by that. I think something interesting has happened in our culture over the last decade or so with, and I'm actually like a really big proponent of technology advances and social media. I think there's so many good things happening in the world. But what has happened is that as social media has gained influence and power, as information has become more readily available to people, whether it be learning information or health information or just information about what the person you went to high school ate yesterday. Like as we became a more information saturated culture, what I'm seeing, and I see this in myself too, I see that there's this outward influence to consume other people's lives, whether you're consuming it through Instagram or Facebook, whether you're consuming it through podcasts, maybe even like this one, or you're consuming it through media of any kind, news, television, we're really starting to become wired to look outward to get information about what we need to be okay on the inside. And I don't think that's all wrong. I actually think there's a lot of value in finding a few wise mentors and people who can give some insight and support to this human experience. So getting some information from the outside, I think, is good. But I think what we as a culture have started to fall into is this feeling of hopelessness or a hamster wheel, just like every day feeling a little bit the same. And we're feeling a little stuck, I think, as a culture and what we're seeing presented to us. And we get stuck in a little bit of a compare and despair place. And it is my hope on this podcast and on any information that you choose to bring from me, from the outside in, that you're being given an invitation through my teaching to actually go inside yourself, find some wisdom, find some information that is so important for your life. And then we'll figure out how to apply that in your day-to-day experiencing. So rather than consuming other people's lives, what I recommend the first week of the year, the first couple of weeks of the year, actually, if you listen to my last podcast, you know I love January for busy moms as a time of listening, where you just listen to your life, you observe, you get curious, you start to craft out little pockets of space in your calendar for yourself, all before you get overly ambitious and try to make a bunch of stuff happen in your life in the new year. So let's work together today on not consuming other people's lives, other people's ideas about what a good, vibrant life is, but instead move inward. And I'm going to give you some ideas about how to do that today, but I want to invite you, call you to setting aside a little bit of time in the next several weeks to go inward and start thinking about what kind of life do you want to build for yourself this year? Not what you want to achieve, not what you want to accomplish, but what you want to feel in your life, what you want your life to be made out of, like what the building blocks of that are going to be, and how you want to help yourself move diligently, not with unsustainable effort or harsh criticism, but rather really gentle support, but really intentional self-love and self-discipline to build a life that feels vibrant and like one you're loving living now, not later, not when things get easier, not when your kid gets older, not when you finish that work project, or not when you get to that point in your schedule, but now. So we're moving from like a doing things to like developing and growing and building something life-giving and vibrant today. Over the holidays, the last couple of weeks of December, I was taking in some information about like hope and peace and some of these words that come up across a lot of traditions and practices toward the winter solstice or the winter holidays or the Christmas time of year. And I was presented with this kind of phrase or this idea that says, a light shines in the darkness, and the darkness does not overcome it. And that refrain, a light shines in the darkness, and the darkness does not overcome it, really sat with me. And it was coming to me with that teacher's ideas and perspectives, but I actually was really drawn by this image of literally having like a single candle in the middle of a room. And no matter how dark the room gets, that darkness does not overcome that flame of the candle. And so it got me thinking. I mean, I went off on my own tangent and I'm going to share that tangent with you. And I hope it brings some vision and inspiration to your year, just like it is for me. But I was having this like epiphany on the inside of so much of what we do as people is try to keep the lights on around us. We try to turn this light on and turn that light on and make sure this light is going. And in this metaphor, to me, light stands for things going the way that we want them to go, things feeling the way we want them to feel. And whether it has to do with our parenting or our sense of self or our relationships, we're wanting things to keep feeling better. We're wanting things to grow. We're wanting things to move in a positive direction. Of course, nothing wrong with that. But I think that where we suffer is when outside of our control, it feels like things aren't going according to plan. Things aren't going our way. It feels like lights are getting turned off, like this light turned off, this lamp that I turned on, and I was so intentional about making happen, like it turns off sometimes. And I see that when people talk about like not being able to follow through with their New Year's commitments. And I think there's a lot of information about out there that is kind of overtly shaming that you don't have the right type of mindset, or you don't have the right type of plan, or you don't have the right type of program if you end up struggling with whatever it is that you intend for yourself at one point of the year and you're struggling to maintain it through the rest of the year. In my over 20 years of being a therapist, I have just found that it's much more human to experience an ebb and flow in our lives. So I think two things are true. It's important to know what you intend and what you want to build, and to work on building the skills and the inner musculature to be able to move toward it. And then I also think a second thing is true at the same time, that we should expect ebbs and flows in our energy. We should expect ebbs and flows in our commitment and our desire. I think we should expect ebbs and flows in different things taking priority in different seasons of life. So what's a human supposed to do when we want to move towards something with integrity, but also we want to make room for fluctuation? I think rather than focusing on keeping all of the lights on, metaphorically speaking, out here, instead we focus on what that inner flame is looking like and how to build a life where that inner candle or that inner flame is paramount. So that, imagine this with me, friends, you've got a strong candle burning in the middle of the room, and there are a lot of lights on in the room, and it's daylight. If that flame stays lit, it can get dark outside, and that doesn't affect the candle. The flame is lit no matter what's happening with the day on the outside. Then we come into the home, the flame is lit, and then two lamps can turn off, and it doesn't affect the flame at all. The light still shines in the darkness. Then we can turn off all the lights in the home, and it's dark outside. So it is very dark. There is no other light, but still, if that candle stays lit, that light shines in the darkness. The darkness itself does not affect the lit flame. The darkness does not overcome the lit flame. And I think this is so big for our sense of spirit as human beings. I woke up today to some disturbing news in the world. It's kind of like the norm, right? These days, there's a lot happening, and it can feel like negativity and conflict and war and suffering is overtaking our sense of humanity and our sense of being. And I think it's so important to me that you feel individually like you have a strong candle and flame that stays lit and is built to stay lit, and that when it maybe temporarily goes out, you have ways to ignite it and keep it lit strongly from within, so that you are able to offer your creativity, your goodwill, your connection, and your commitment to making something beautiful of your own life and in other people's lives as well. so that whatever outer darkness we might be experiencing, that doesn't overcome the really beautiful light that we each have inside of us. So sit with that for a second. No matter what lights go off around you, no matter what darkness feels like it's coming in, that those things actually, of course, we may not like them, we may not prefer them, they may be very painful to experience, but they don't have to change or overcome that flame within. So my invitation, my challenge to you this year is to increase or magnify or amplify your own vision for your own vibrant well-being and health this year. Again, not doing more or achieving more, but building internal life force energy, which has to do with mindset and emotional well-being and physical health and creativity and fulfillment, like that big life force energy, a bigger inner flame. And if you can cast that vision, I know that your steps will follow. And your steps following that vision means that that inner flame will help you to navigate the challenges in your life more skillfully, help you grow beyond your current capacities or limitations. By the way, we all have them. The goal is just to keep growing beyond them. And then also to create a life, this vibrant life where we're in more contact, we're gaining proximity to awe and beauty and everything in your life that you hold dear and that you treasure. We want to create a life that is as vibrant in that it allows us to maintain contact with the simple but beautiful things we value most in this life. So we're going this year for simplicity versus striving and finding things that ignite that inner flame and keep it burning strong and bright. What I love about vibrant health principles that are simple is that they are the only ones, in my experience, that truly gain traction in the long haul. I believe this to be true actually for all humans, but what I love about the crucible that is motherhood, the change period that is motherhood, is that if it is not simple, it won't last. It's this beautiful, amazing, and intense season of life where there's just too much going on. There's too much in constant evolution, like within ourselves, with our kids, with our work or our callings or our careers. Like there's just so much happening. It's a tightly packed in season of life with constant and continual change happening within and around us, that if it's not simple, we just can't implement it successfully over time. So it really lets like things that are superfluous just fall away, and it elevates what feels simple and repeatable and is actually meaningful in the long run. So the things that are going to build and sustain that inner flame are going to have to be simple. If there's too much striving, it's not going to last. And believe me, this is well tested from a professional striver. I'm highly ambitious. I work hard. I strive for a lot. I envision a lot. And it has become a litmus test that when I start to strive, I am actually starting a path of suffering for myself. So it's an invitation whenever I'm seeing striving to move towards simplicity. Doesn't mean that there's no effort involved, but it's a more simple, sustained, and lit from within effort. It's like that texture of that quality is different than a striving, effortful way of living. So I hope that interests you, my friend. I want to envision a vibrant well-being, vibrant relationships, vibrant living, vibrant health for you in 2026, but without the striving and the suffering, but with more openness and simplicity and skillful lit candle from within living. If that interests you too, stick with me. Here are my top 2 mini practices I recommend that you prioritize as you're listening to your life in January to help you figure out what are the simple things and rhythms and rituals that you want to invest in 2026. So we're looking for low effort, but does take some effort, but relatively low effort and high impact rituals and rhythms on the daily to help you get that candle burning bright within. So here are my 2 low effort, low time intensity, but high impact rituals and rhythms that I'd recommend you weave into most days as a busy mom. When I do a little self-reflection audit, when I look back at the last year, I feel like I didn't do both of these things every single day, but I did do at least one of these things most work days. And when I was able to get both in most work days, I had a more vibrant, spacious, like inner candle experience that I've been describing. So I'm going to learn from that and try to weave it in myself this year, more days than not. And I invite you to do the same. So the first low effort but high impact ritual is 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, but I'm going to say 15 to really challenge you to claim a little more time for yourself this year. 15 minutes of time in. So this is alone time where you're doing things that nurture a relationship with yourself, things that are you connecting with you in a high quality way. Those could be things like having a book that's about personal growth or spiritual development or a book of poetry or just something that is inspiring and life-giving to you. And you do a short passage inspiration reading format. So you're not trying to get through this book quickly. You're just trying to get through it like a paragraph at a time or a page at a time or a mini chapter at a time, that you're just taking in a little bit of information. And rather than consuming a big amount, you choose to constrict yourself to a little bit of information. And then you're sitting with it. You're thinking about it. You're contemplating it. You're wondering how you can apply it to your day-to-day life. So a short passage inspirational reading is an example of an activity that you can do in high quality time in. You could also be doing some deep breathing and sitting with a cup of coffee or tea and just bringing some spaciousness to your mind and body connection by quietly drinking tea and breathing deeply to start the day or to take a pause in your day. You could think about some writing practices, whether it be just kind of that morning pages idea of just writing 3 pages of free association, whatever comes up. Or you could be writing tidbits about your day, or you could be gratitude listing. There's so many beautiful writing practices. And I think that where wellness influencers get it wrong is they think that there's like a correct practice for writing or a correct practice for breathing or a correct book to read for this short passage inspiration. But what my experience has taught me is that it's better to know that there's like a menu of practices or rituals that if we create the space to engage in them kind of flexibly, we will benefit, as long as we're doing something that represents that time in, check in rhythm. So maybe you're doing a little bit of journaling or writing, or maybe you're bringing in a meditation practice or a visioning practice of sort. You could be listening to something, or you could learn a basic meditation practice and just do it quietly for yourself. Or you could be doing other anchoring, grounding within practices, like asking yourself a series of questions and prompts and then thinking through or writing your answers for them. Or there could be a prayer practice of sorts that you engage in. When I'm thinking about short passage reading, breathing, writing, meditation, prayerful or spiritual practices, or thinking about things that help us to facilitate a conversation within, that help us to facilitate a deeper knowing of ourselves and a deeper exploration or curiosity with ourselves. I believe that if you prioritize that every day, it will help inform how to move into other health goals with skill, how to work through conflict with someone you care about in a more aligned way, how to make a business decision in a way that is better aligned or better suited for your needs or the situation's needs, how to encourage yourself to move into a creative project, even if you're nervous about it or scared about it. All the things that make us feel like we're living a vibrant life, I think come from that quality time in, plugging in every day. And there are people that say this has to happen in the very beginning of the day. And I understand why they say that. It's really easy to have other tasks crowd our attention from this time in. But I find that the more I work with moms and busy moms, it's more important to know what time of day works best for the season of life that you're in. So is it waking up 15 minutes before everybody? Do that. Is it getting everybody off to the day and then doing it? Then do that. Is it front loading a lot of your work and caregiving and then having a precious period of time midday or toward the end of the day that is dedicated to you and to this inner time in inquiry? Do that. What I think is more important is looking at what makes sense given your schedule, your demands, the way that your work works in your life, the resources you have available to you. Pay attention to those things and try to find a time of day, and maybe 2 times a day, like priority time. And if it doesn't work, where you're going to pick it up later so that you will find a way, at least 1 or 2 stop points in your day where you can have this 15 minutes of high quality time in. And I think this first time is more about practicing being with ourselves and not being entertained, being with ourselves and not being distracted, being with ourselves and not needing to achieve something or go anywhere or get anything out of it, but more practicing being with ourselves, bringing in practices that help anchor us and steady us, and practicing being in companionship with ourselves and doing a bit of listening and curious exploration before we do anything else. All right, the second low effort but high impact ritual that I recommend trying to put into most days is a 15-minute walk, 10 to 15-minute walk. And you can do this pretty much any time of the day that it works in your schedule. You could do it in the morning. You could do it after drop off before you start your day. You could do it as a break in the middle of your workday at any point. You could do it as a transitional activity between working and then moving into your caregiving part of your day. You may find that you benefit from more than one 15-minute walk a day, but I'm just thinking about sustainable and simple. If you can get one 10 to 15-minute walk in a day, that could really move the needle on that feeling of an inner richness, an inner flame, an inner resourcefulness, kind of lighting your way and not getting extinguished no matter what darkness or challenges might be going on around you. And this is my challenge for you, my friend. You might benefit from that walk no matter what. Like just getting outside and getting fresh air and walking is going to benefit you no matter what. If you did that talking to someone, that could benefit you. Just connecting with someone and having a good time, getting to know someone better or catching up with someone you care about, that would have its own benefit. If you went on a walk and you listened to a podcast like this one, or you listened to an audiobook, that might give you some benefit too. But this is my challenge for you. Could you try doing a 10 to 15-minute walk alone, not listening to anything or talking to anyone, just practicing that inner listening, that ability to be with yourself and your own thoughts within, and then using this walk as a time to start to get curious about what your emotions have been, what your mood has been that day, what your fears and desires are, what your joys and excitements have been. So that 15-minute time in with short passage reading, breathing, writing, meditating, things like that, that's a little bit more about kind of setting the stage or setting the tone or just bringing in a quality of contemplative peacefulness and knowing yourself a little bit more from a spirit or mind way. And this walk is a little more emotional body care where you're using your body to propel you through the world. Walking tends to have a regulating effect on the mind body connection. So you're using a practice like walking that's going to get your body in line with creating a space to work through your inner emotional world. I find that most busy or working moms are having a really hard time knowing what to do with the emotional content that they're navigating on a daily basis. So we need to gain skills and how to work through that emotional content. But we also need to have rituals or practices that create the space for us to work through those skills, use those skills. So this 15-minute walk is meant to be a time where you can unwind from the day or unwind from whatever the momentum of the day has been so far whenever you get to that walk, and attune inward into what that emotional landscape is looking like. And if you're not exactly sure what to do with that inner emotional landscape, I don't blame you. That's why I created the Vibrant Mom Collective. We are all about teaching skills to create vibrant health and well-being, which looks like gaining a next era toolkit for working through your emotional world. So pop into the collective, take a look at the link in the show notes below so that you can learn more about it. But stick with me on the podcast too. I'll always be giving some tools and skills in this space, but you want to start to work through and use whatever emotional well-being toolkit you have on that 15-minute walk. We're practicing emotional agility on this walk. We're practicing taking space to observe our emotions, name our emotions with more specificity, to practice looking at our emotions and learning about ourselves from them versus being overpowered by our emotions or looking at situations through the lens of our emotions. We're practicing looking at ourselves, holding the emotions, working through them, and then taking action to move forward in our lives for the better in a skillful way. After we've done a little bit of that 10 to 15 minute emotional agility, good work. So sometimes it's possible to do both practices in one day. We find at some point in the first half of the day where we can do that 15-minute time in practice. And then at some point, maybe in the latter half of the day, we do that 15-minute walk for our emotional agility practice. Or maybe we do both in the beginning of the day because we have 30 minutes to do it. We can chunk them together or we can separate them. And some days we don't get both in. And guess what? That's okay. Every day is a new adventure, a new opportunity to develop new practices, new ways of being, new rhythms that bring richness and vibrancy to our lives. So don't get hung up on doing this perfectly. I would prefer you to maybe walk into January thinking, if I do two things this month, it's going to be a short time in practice and a short walk for emotional agility. That would move the needle significantly, my friend. And don't worry too much about having the perfect things to do during that time in or during that emotional agility. I would love to teach you what I think would be helpful for you to do during those times. So come in closer, like join in the mentoring program so you can receive my offerings for what to do. But I think rather than worrying about the exact thing to do right now, it's more just practice being in that with whatever you already know right now. Practice doing a little bit of time in with whatever you know right now, and practice doing a 10 to 15 minute on purpose walking to connect in and get curious about your emotional landscape and to practice any emotional agility skills that you already have. And if you're like, Kara, I need to know what to do during those times, well, then leave me a comment. Look at the Vibrant Mom Collective. I'll tell you what I would recommend you do during that time. So, what are you thinking, my friend? Are you thinking that 2026 could be a year for deep, vibrant well being and inner light building? I can't wait to hear about the life that you build for yourself this year, the flame from within that you're going to cultivate and build. And I can't wait to see how your inner light shines and influences and has a positive impact on your family, in your sphere of influence, and on your own sense of awe and enjoyment and well-being this year. And I can't wait to journey with you and follow along and be in this together, my friend.